Hello, I'm Hilary Robertson, and you're listening to the latest episode of Harmonious World. For this episode, I'm joined by cellist Matt Haimovitz. His latest album is Primavera II, The Rabbits. It's the second of 6 albums in this incredible series, and it encompasses 81 world premieres for solo cello. But this is not just one solo cello. In this album, you've got overlays of 4 cellos at a time in places. All of these pieces are a response to Sandro Botticelli's enigmatic painting Primavera and the prophetic large-scale triptych Primavera 2020 by world-renowned contemporary artist Charlene von Hale. I'm really looking forward to chatting to Matt about this album, which is so creative and imaginative. I hope you enjoy listening. Hello, thank you for joining me on Harmonious World. It's great to talk to you.
Good to talk to you. Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, I'm really fascinated by this Primavera project, but also by this album. It's mesmerizing, this music. It's absolutely stunning.
You. Oh, I'm so glad you like it. Yeah, I feel that way too about it.
Yeah. So there's so much to unpack here. In terms of the art inspiration and the compositions and how it all came about and, what order things happened in. So obviously the original Primavera was the first thing, which is sort of 500 years ago or whatever.
This whole project has unfolded very organically, and I could never have known that we'd be in the position and then, in sort of the where we are right now with it. It really started with going to a lot of museums and galleries with my partner, Jeffrey Ann Young. And Jeffrey and I kind of walked into the room of where the Primavera hangs in Florence at the Uffizi. And we were mesmerized by this painting. And of course, we'd heard about this painting and we knew about it, but seeing it in person was really, there was a glow to it, and something about the moment. This is still pre-pandemic by a few months, but somehow the moment, one could sort of sense that the world was headed in the wrong direction, in many ways, environmentally and politically and all kinds of ways. So we just started thinking about this painting and loved also the connections that there was so much sort of metaphysical sort of, the self-referential cycles within it, in terms of Greek myths and other symbols and hundreds of species of flora depicted in the painting and just the various messages and symbols of the painting. So we started to really read up quite a bit on it, and kind of concurrently, by accident and serendipitously, came on the work of Charlene von Hale at the Hirshhorn Gallery in Washington, D.C. And again, Jeffrey and I were both blown away by her art, and we reached out to her gallery, and within a few hours, actually, we heard from Charlene herself, and Charlene von Hale invited us to come and visit her Marfa studio, and we could just spend some time together. And those hours that we spent with her were really just kind of emerging of we just were very much on a similar wavelength, and she also was very intrigued by the Botticelli painting, and she looked over at one of the paintings on her wall and she said, I think I'm done with this painting. I think I'm going to start yours now. And
Wow.
We hadn't directly asked her for a painting, but a few months later, she had created Primavera 2020, a very different take on it, and a painting that stands on its own without any reference, but it absolutely. You can kind of see the form and some of what she's reacting to with the Botticelli. Of course, it's totally transformed, more prophetic for our own time, and just the between the two paintings, we thought it's a very rich starting point to commission composers and engage these periods, 500 years apart, and the various themes that are depicted in the paintings, and we didn't want to tell composers what to focus on. We wanted to give them an open, that they could just whatever they were engaged with, they could go and compose and be inspired. And the main theme with the composers is that they have to recommend more composers. So we started with 9 composers, and those 9 recommend another set of
Oh,
composers, and so on. And I mean, ultimately, Jeffrey and I are choosing the composers that we feel very close to in terms of the music, and we're both of us, even though we come from very different backgrounds, are kind of getting out of our comfort zones and exploring musical languages and styles I personally have never encountered, and so it's definitely moving in different directions than I could have expected. And that's, here we are now, 40 composers into the 81 composers that we're commissioning, and the painting is no longer in Marfa, Texas. It's now hanging in Venice at the
right.
Biennale.
Yeah.
And so it's across an ocean, and I couldn't tell you where this is all going to end up, but I mean, we have some idea, and fortunately, it seems like we are emerging from the worst of the pandemic times and all the lockdowns and everything, and sort of slowly coming out. And this is just been a very, very beautiful and hopeful project to be a part of.
Yeah. So the only 2 criteria were inspiration from one of those paintings or both of them, and for solo cello.
Right. Initially, it was going to be cello and orchestra. We wanted tone poems, but during the pandemic, that was not practical because many orchestras weren't able to really do much.
No.
So yeah, so we shifted to mostly solo cello. There are 1 or 2 that are multi cello, and I've had to overlay the parts and recording, and
Right. Yeah.
um, but that's the criteria. I mean, the one we're encouraging each composer to somehow bridge between the 2 paintings. That's ideal for us.
And I think the musical styles, they fill in completely all the gaps, don't they, between 14 whatever it was and 2020. They really fill that space in terms of the musical styles, musical genres, and there's everything in there. It's and actually that's only listening to these first few. So I haven't I haven't listened to obviously all 81 yet. Have you recorded all 81?
No, we've only commissioned about 40, so we have another 40 to go. So we're working on the next 10 actually this week even. We're commissioning some more composers. Um, there is such a broad range. I mean, from bluegrass to David Balakrishnan has Hendrix inspired
Yeah.
piece to
Right.
Nilüfer Nurbaksh. It's very much turning the cello into an oud, kind of a Persian, using Persian modes. Middle Eastern, yeah, we've got African-based, dance rhythms. We've got, I mean, it's just runs the gamut to very hardcore, thorny, abstract, atonal. I mean, it's just everything you can imagine. Neo-romantic, of course. Philip Glass. People might be surprised. It's less minimalist than you would expect. It's more neo-romantic and songful, and so yeah, it's a whole range of languages and reactions, and I'll just I'm going wherever they send me with the instrument. I mean, I
Yeah.
have to use sticky tack. I have to I use a variety of mutes. I pluck. I bow. I create all kinds of different sounds. I emulate electric guitar or flute um, or the voice.
Yes. And yet at the heart of it, there is this beautiful cello. It's not, I don't want to give my audience the idea that this is strange. It's not. There are elements that are a bit, they make you sit up and listen. But at the heart of it is this beautiful, sonorous cello throughout all of the pieces that I've heard.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you know, I now, after years and years of playing new music and working with composers, I love it because I get immediate feedback from the composers, and I love shaping the music and really working with them. And I started early with Gheorghe Ligeti, one of the giants of the 20th century. I was very fortunate. That was my first experience with a living composer. And after that, I thought, oh my God, I need to have these conversations. I can't have that conversation with Bach and with Beethoven or Josquin des Prez. I need to be able to do that. So I sought it out. But what I faced, particularly in the classical music world, is that people are afraid of these new languages and they're afraid of the abstraction. And in fact, the art world, I always find, in my mind, is sort of 50 years or so ahead of the music world because people trust their eyes more than their ears for some reason. They can process. There's a narrative. There's something we somehow translate what we see in a very different way than what we hear, and or at least most of us do. So I think that's really what has been so beautiful about this project is that yes, it's new music. Nobody's heard it before. Some you'll recognize, a variety of styles, and you'll have sort of a frame of reference for the music. So others not. But they all come back to these paintings, and so there's always something that grounds what we're doing, and that it's been really exciting to see the responses, especially now, from the Biennale where you have more of an art crowd, seeing the painting and starting to hear the music for the first time.
Yeah.
It's really interesting. They're open to it. They're open to the music, and we're getting a good reaction. And that is sort of the goal. I would say the overall goal of this whole project is for people um, to get over the intimidation factor and the hesitation of like experiencing something new and just being able to process and to feel inspired by all of
Yeah.
this.
And when I was listening to the music, I kept jumping between the photographs because that did really help sort of, and I don't mean explain it, but you could hear running through the music elements from the paintings. It's
Exactly, and I
fascinating.
think I think that's the ideal way to experience it. But I also think that every single element of this project stands on its own, including Charlene's painting. You don't really need the Botticelli to appreciate what Charlene has done. It's a masterpiece, and yet if you have the Botticelli and you're looking at the Botticelli and you look at the Charlene Von Hell, then you understand where she's coming from and how the you know the idea that nothing comes out of thin air. The idea that there's always a connection, there's always a precursor, and in our own lives, that's what we do. And unfortunately, for the you see how easy it is to try to forget history or try to you think that you live in a time that is that the present is immune from the past, but it's not. We're always part of these cycles, and nature reminds us of that with every new season. And
Yeah.
that's the for us. It's a very very important theme that runs through this whole thing, and just the idea that we're tied to the past, and that the past and the present really um, they help us shape where we're
Yeah.
going.
Yeah. Absolutely, and I mean, I love the fact that you've got a snippet of the uh, of the modern painting as your album cover, and even in that reduced form, there is still so much of the depth and the intricacy of it, and the the fact that you kind of every time I look at both paintings, but especially the new one that you see something different. You go, oh, I hadn't noticed those bits or whatever. The links and it's amazing. It's really good, lovely.
Well, it's also the way we experience art. I mean, everybody will sort of be drawn to different things. You might start at the top right of the painting and work your way to the left, and or the other way around, or up or down, or you might gravitate right away to. There's in Charlene Van Hale's painting. There's a really beautiful stencil blue flower, but you might not notice it on first glance because the painting is so immense and the scale of it is so big, and then you sort of gravitate to that flower, and you could just spend quite a bit of time just studying that, or looking at the rabbits, which we highlighted for the second album. The
Yeah.
third album is coming up very soon. It's The Vessel, so that of course the kind of Greek reference of the vessel, and all this symbolic aspect of that. But yeah, absolutely, the details are really interesting to focus on.
And am I right in thinking that you actually recorded this album, these tracks, at Charlene Van Hale's studio?
We have recorded every track so far at Charlene's studio.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it's the way you described the sound of the cello and this sort of world or universe of sound. My cello from Venice, from 1710, made by Matteo Grafriller, one of the great makers of instruments, particularly cellos, known for the depth of their sound, for the especially the lower range. I would say that Charlene's studio is an extension of my instrument. I'm playing another instrument, and so the resonance of Charlene's space is absolutely part of this sound. And it was quite a technological feat what we did, because we had an amazing producer, David Frost, multi Grammy nominated, or winning. Actually, I think he might have more wins than just about anybody on the planet. He was in New York City, and we were sending the engineer, sound engineer, was sending high def sound to New York from Marfa, Texas, and David Frost was producing this, producing my performances over there in Marfa. So it
Wow.
was quite. I mean, I think we just have reached that level of technology. So we were very fortunate. So with all the lockdowns and everything, it just kicked in
Yeah.
to this way of recording, and even the Josquin arrangements. So that what begins the Rabbits, Primavera II, the Rabbits. It's a 4-part Josquin piece that actually relates directly to a piece that's on the previous album by Lisa Bielawa called Misa Primavera. And Lisa was fascinated by Josquin's music and this particular mass of his, and it's a 4-part, and she sort of, it's a fantasy on that 4-part. So the second album begins with the actual music from 500 years ago.
Right. And so your cello was made in Venice, and now the Charlene Van Hale painting is in the Biennale with your music playing. So it's all electronic, but on an instrument that was made there. That's
I know. Yeah.
That's a bit cosmic, isn't it? That's a bit amazing.
It is. It really is. I mean, and yeah, that wood,
Yeah,
all those hundreds of years and it survived. And this, you know, who would have connected Marfa, Texas, and Venice, Italy? Just you
yeah.
can't make this up.
No,
So,
exactly. And my guess is that
yeah,
the sonic vibrations which make the recording so right in the artist's studio are probably the ones that make it so right to listen to in the Biennale. So,
yeah.
it's amazing, isn't it? All of these things that are helping to create this, I don't know, the whole event.
And if you are going to Venice before November, because the painting will be on display until November, the whole, and it's pretty spectacular. Not just our painting and Charlene's work, but I mean, it's a pretty spectacular Biennale. So I encourage people to go see it. But when you go and you are in front of the Primavera 2020, um, the music is not just playing. You have to actually, there's a QR code, and you do have to
Oh,
take
okay.
your phone and go to the go to the link for the QR code, and then you get the music on whatever platform you listen to, whether it's Apple Music or Spotify or whatever it
Okay.
is. So yeah, so there's a little bit of a interactive aspect of it, but yeah, I hope people have a chance. I mean, Venice on its own is just extraordinary. It's
Well, yeah.
magical, and then this Biennale, 90% of the artists this year are women, and it is really. I'm gonna take my daughters later in August to go. We're gonna go back. We were there. We were privileged to be invited to the pre-opening and just experience the
Amazing.
whole hoopla of the
Yeah.
of the Biennale, but also to spend several days. We were there for I think 3 or 4 days. We went back and just there's so much art, so inspiring,
Yeah.
and it just takes a
Yeah.
while to absorb. But yeah, I encourage people to go check it out.
Yeah. Great. Um, when do you think this project is going to be, in inverted commas, finished?
This feels like a lifelong
It does. Yeah, it sounds like it.
experience.
Yeah.
I think we're gonna our aim right now. Jeffrey and I are talking about it. We hope to have over the next year the pieces commissioned. So we hope to have the 81 pieces. We have no idea where the painting is going next from the Biennale in November. We'll see. Charlene Van Hale has been incredibly generous and inclusive with us, and it's really a very collaborative project. So we'll see. Um, I I think all of our dreams actually is to at some point experience the two paintings in the same
Oh,
room.
yeah.
But I don't know when and how that will happen. So we'll see. But I have a feeling that something chemical will happen when those two paintings come together. And and we're talking about, now that we're going back into the concert hall and theater, to some kind of theatrical presentation of this that bridges the two paintings. And so we're thinking hard about how what that might look like. It's difficult because um, Charlene Van Hale is a painter, and I am a cellist. I play acoustic, and I
Yeah.
mean, I'll go and I've done some things where I've amplified, of course, and played in rock bands and done all kinds of stuff. Um, but that's my great love is to play my cello in a beautiful sounding space, and whether it's one person or 3,000 people in the hall, have them experience the sound, the visceral sound, three-dimensional quality
Yeah.
of it. And that's what I love. And I think Charlene Van Hale feels the same way about her art. She's not an animator, she's not a
No.
movie maker. She paints, and it's we're old school in that way. And yet we live in the 21st century, and we so we're thinking about how to sort of use our technology to benefit and to sort of amplify perhaps what
Yeah.
we are doing, and so we're thinking about it, and that's where I couldn't tell you where it's going to go, but I think there's some good things to look forward to with this project.
Fantastic. Okay, well, thank you so much for joining me. It was really interesting, and I'm looking forward to. I'm going to have to go and get the first album so that I can chart it all the way through, because it's just fascinating, and I want to be able to see those connections.
I don't know what your timing is, but the brand new album number 3 is coming out on June 24th.
Ah.
So, and that's going to have the 2 Philip Glass, world premieres.
Okay.
Samsara and Philip's Song. He gave us 2 pieces, and it's got some pretty amazing. There's a piece by Annabelle Chwastig that I'm very excited about. She's a Toronto composer and comes from the bluegrass folk scene, and
okay.
So it's a very beautiful piece, and Layla Chaker and some it was Lebanese composer. There's some really beautiful music on that coming up.
Well, it sounds as if I need to bring it all into, perhaps to be talking about all 3 of the first 3 albums. Yeah,
you'll be the first to do that. That would be amazing.
That would be incredible. Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
As you heard, between organising the interview with Matt, actually conducting the interview itself, now editing it and releasing it, he's got another album out. So I was originally talking to him about Primavera II, the Rabbits, and now Primavera III, which is the Vessels, is also out now. So this is another chunk of these wonderful solo cello pieces. At the start of this podcast, you were listening to Spring Figures, and now this is Volplaning. In the show notes, you can find links to Matt's website and all the social media, and do follow the links through and see the paintings, and there are also some videos. And if you happen to get to Venice, to the Biennale, then I'm very jealous. But there will be news coming soon of the next recordings as they are released. I hope this finds you well. Please do rate, review my podcast. It really helps people find it. All the links are in the show notes. Please do share what you're good at to make this world a little more harmonious. Thank you for listening to the latest episode of Harmonious World. My name is Hilary Seabrook, and it's a great delight to bring this series of discussions with musicians and composers and writers and all sorts of people to you. Obviously, there's no point in having a podcast if people aren't listening, and I'm very grateful to my listeners for doing so. Thanks also to Joe English for composing and performing this new theme tune. So wherever you get your podcast, you can leave a review. You can share this with your friends and family, either as a link or on social media and that sort of thing. I'd be really grateful for that. Don't forget that you can subscribe now. There's a link wherever you get your podcasts. So have a great week, and please remember why I started this, which is just to try and make the world a little more harmonious. Thanks for listening to Harmonious World.